Hello and welcome to our course, Understanding the Rockefeller Habits for Associations. My name is Jamie Nodder. I am a co-founder of PROPEL, and I am going to be the instructor for this course. And I got to say, I'm excited about bringing the Rockefeller Habits and Verne Harnish's scaling up methodology to the association community. I think it's super important, particularly now, but it has been important for a while. We're very excited to be bringing this and our coaching program to help associations really embrace these ideas and unlock some growth. So in this sort of introductory module, I just wanted to give you an overview of what the habits are, where they came from, and why they matter in the association context. So the habits themselves, as you might have guessed, start with John D Rockefeller. He was a business magnate, according to Wikipedia, in the early 1900s. I love being able to use the word magnate. He was also an oil tycoon, another word I wish I could use more. Early 20th century, revolutionizing business, making tons and tons of money, did a lot of growing, and so he was a source of inspiration. Honestly, I don't know a whole lot about Rockefeller himself, because the habits themselves, as far as I know, weren't written by Rockefeller. They were written by a guy named Verne Harnish. And it's actually more important that we understand who Verne Harnish is than we understand the details about John Rockefeller. Harnish wrote the book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. Harnish himself was an entrepreneur, and he created what is now known as the EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. So it's actually an association. Small known fact, one of my very first paying consulting clients was YEO, Young Entrepreneurs Organization, back in like 2002. Anyway, an aside. So Harnish created this entrepreneurs organization and wrote this book about the Rockefeller habits because he believes they are critical for entrepreneurs who want to grow their organization. Now, I've not seen, this is version 1.0, I've not seen it because he later wrote a book called Scaling Up, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits 2.0. And he literally says in the book, if you didn't read the first one, you don't have to, it's all in here. And he reorganized the habits a little to have more of a flow that would support growth. And within this book, there's sort of a complete methodology for infusing these habits into your organization so that you can achieve the same kind of growth. Now, what are the habits? Well, the course here is going to go over all 10, although we've changed them a little bit. So as an example, these are 3 of the habits. The executive team is healthy and aligned. So there's a whole habit around how you get your top management team to be healthy and aligned with what's going on. The company's plans and performance are visible to everyone. So this is sort of related to strategy. Everyone can see what our strategy is and the progress we're making on it. And then third, all employees can answer quantitatively whether they had a good day or week. So this habit is you'll see a lot of the habits are around metrics, but this one's about execution metrics. How do we know we're succeeding? And when we looked, as I said, he's got a flow to this that is the Scaling Up book is organized around, which is people, strategy, execution, and cash. So you sort of, people's like getting the right people on the bus and making sure the team is aligned, that habit is in there. And then there's a lot of work on strategy and sort of being focused on one thing and quarterly goals and that kind of stuff. Then there's a piece on execution, which includes a lot about how you measure that and how you manage that on a sort of weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And then there's a 4th section on cash, which is about the financial and profitability piece of the equation and making sure you have enough money in the business to help it grow. When we looked at that to apply it in the association context, we actually think the principles and the habits themselves are all 100% applicable. But if you know us, we have a strong background in organizational culture, and we wanted to make sure that piece was being developed enough as part of the habits. We felt like the original habits didn't quite bring culture up to the level it needed to be. So we reorganized. We didn't rewrite them really, but we reorganized the habits to fall into these three categories. We think the cash piece flows throughout all three, and we'll talk about that in the course. But we realized that the habits themselves could be organized around culture, strategy, and execution, because those three things need to be integrated. We tend to treat them as separate, like, oh, I'll deal with culture when I need to, or I'll do the strategic planning once every 3 years. Culture and strategy and execution need to be integrated on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. Okay, and that's consistent, I think, with what Harnish is talking about in these habits. So instead of just saying, well, there's 10 and you got to learn them all, we broke them down into culture, strategy, and execution. So there's 3 habits around culture, one about making your culture visible, another one about aligning it with what makes you successful, and then the third one about the role of the top, and that's where the healthy and aligned executive team comes in. There's 3 strategy habits, which include making your strategy really visible from sort of the long-term 20-year goal down to quarterly priorities. Again, the quarterly focus is a central component of the scaling up methodology. It's something I think associations really need to embrace. So there's a whole habit around that. And then there's a habit around visibility of progress, which is metrics, which you'll see also in the execution piece. How do we know we're making progress, and can everyone be a part of that and see that? And then the third area of habits is going to be around execution. So number 1, meetings and information flow. Are we having our internal meetings and spreading information throughout the organization in a way that's very successful? Are we really focused on members and customers and stakeholders? And by the way, I know you think you are, but I think you could probably up your game on this. So we'll talk about that around that habit. Number 3, there is zero confusion around who's accountable for what, which is a big problem in my opinion in associations. And then 4, everyone knows their success metrics, and this is a lot where that cash piece gets brought in. Everyone knows how to measure our profitability and can manage that in their everyday activities. So these are the 10 habits, and this is going to be the structure in this course. There's going to be modules on each of the individual habits, but we break it down into culture, strategy, and execution. I think these are patently important to associations, but I mean, if you need a little reminder, you want to know why we're bringing this in, we do think at a big picture level that right now is the time that you need to transform your business. And if you're thinking, I'm not a business, I'm an association, I'm going to correct you, because you are a business. Now, you don't distribute your profit to shareholders, and you don't pay taxes on your net revenue, lucky you. But you are still a business. Value is exchanged. Money is exchanged. You have a culture and a purpose. You have employees. You make decisions. This is what businesses do. And I feel like we need to kind of up our game around running the business. Because in the association world, we tend to say, you know, if I can just make it let me get through this budget and maybe we'll have an extra 1 or 2% to put into reserves every year. Very incremental, very long-term, very slow growth. And I don't think it has to be that way. That's why we were attracted to Verne Harnish, because his whole mantra is growth. That's what entrepreneurs are really, really good at. Like, their whole purpose is to grow their businesses. So they have embraced this method. Like, thousands of companies are using the Rockefeller Habits and the scaling up methodology to grow their businesses really fast. And again, I know you're saying, well, hey, wait a minute. I'm not an entrepreneur. We're not a startup. We're an association. We have a board of directors. We get a new president every year. You can't expect us to be like them. And I'm not expecting you to be like them, okay? But I'm expecting you to learn from them. Because we need growth. We don't need the same growth that startups do. We're not going to sell our company in 5 years for 10 times what we bought it. But we need growth, because imagine if 7, 8, 9 years from now, you were 10 times the size you are right now. Can you imagine the impact you'd have on your members? Can you imagine the impact you'd have on your community, on your industry, on what you're trying to achieve for your organization and the members, okay? Growth is not about selling the company. Growth is about increasing impact. And we all need to do that right now. So that's actually why we created our coaching program. That is a fundamental belief we have at Propel, that that associations should be increasing their impact. And so that's why we wanted to offer this free course, just to show you, hey, here are the habits, here's the scaling up methodology at a high level. Let's figure out how to start applying this in the association context and really unlocking that growth potential.